Moldova did something brutal to shut down Putin's last Europe bridge, and Russia can no longer stop it, because Moldova hit hard. For years, Putin has been using Transnistria as his most valuable card in southern Europe. Leverage to keep Moldova in orbit, an obstacle against NATO expansion, a ready military base to shift the balance in the Black Sea when needed. When he invaded Ukraine in 2022, part of the plan was to advance toward Odessa and establish a land connection with Transnistria, but that plan completely collapsed. Russia never reached Odessa, and Transnistria was left hanging in the air. And now, seeing that the Kremlin can no longer protect this card, Moldova has launched blow after blow. On April 22, 2026, Chisinau declared 6 senior Russian commanders persona non grata and expelled them from the country. But this was only the final link in a silent offensive that had been going on for months. A complete break from the CIS, an economic blockade, and a convergence with Romania were already in motion. To decode Moldova and Romania's moves, let's first take a short journey on the map. Moldova is a small country squeezed between Romania and Ukraine, right in the middle of Europe. And inside this small country, on the left bank of the Dniester River, there's a ghost territory that has been under Russia's control for over 30 years, Transnistria. Here, 1,500 Russian soldiers, 20,000 tons of Soviet ammunition, and 220,000 Russian passport-holding civilians. This was Putin's last military foothold in Europe, until Moldova shut this bridge down. Let's start with the effects of the latest move first. The military obstacle that came on April 22nd will manifest itself on the ground as an operational blow. When the Soviets collapsed, remnants of the 14th Army stayed here and have been stationed under the peacekeeping force label for over 30 years. But with the persona non grata declaration, the chain of command was broken. 6 senior Russian officers can no longer enter Moldova-controlled territory. Their access to Chisinau, the airport, and international connections has been cut. Transnistria is geographically like a trap. Moldova to the west, Ukraine to the east, both borders closed. These commanders are trapped in a narrow strip 200 kilometers long. Some of the Russian-speaking population in the region is seeking alternatives by obtaining Moldovan passports. The separatist regime's popular support is eroding. The migration of the young population is demographically weakening the region. Russia can neither withdraw these soldiers, nor reinforce them, nor effectively command them. Perhaps for the first time in history, a great power has lost the capacity to rescue its own soldiers. But the issue is not limited just to 6 commanders or to the Russians living in the region. This move affects the logistics chain of all 1,500 Russian soldiers. Rotation is virtually impossible. Ammunition and equipment supply has been cut. The 20,000 tons of explosives at Kobasna, Europe's largest unmonitored weapons depot, poses increasing security risk for the entire region as it goes unmaintained. Moldova is rendering the Russian military presence effectively inoperative without firing a single shot. But persona non grata is only the first prong. The second prong is economic. When Ukraine halted Russian gas transit in 2025, Transnistria's economy collapsed. Moldova turned this crisis into an opportunity. It applied customs regulations nationwide, removed the privileged trade status, and started making the region dependent on its own economy. The third prong is political. Parliament approved withdrawal from the CIS on April 2nd. Sandu signed the decrees on April 6th. CIS membership provided legal basis for Russia's peacekeeping force narrative. That basis is now being removed. The 30-year-old 5+2 negotiation format was also declared dead. In practice, it was a tool Russia used to freeze the status quo. Chisinau is no longer playing this game. Another dimension of Moldova's strategy of distancing from Russia is the deepening convergence with Romania. And this convergence is no longer just rhetoric, it's advancing with concrete steps. President Sandu said in January 2026 that, if there's a referendum, I would vote for unification with Romania. Prime Minister Munteanu went a step further in Bucharest in April. Citizens on both sides of the Prut realize we are very close to unification. Unification is becoming an increasingly realistic prospect. The March survey showed 44% yes. With diaspora votes, this figure could reach 55 to 58%. But official policy is still EU integration first. Unification is being discussed as an alternative scenario. And in practice, the two countries are already acting almost like a single state. On April 23rd, the Prut 2, Moldova, to Falciu, Romania, railway line reopened after a 17-year hiatus. Not just a train line, but the re-establishment of the physical connection between two countries. Energy lines are being integrated. A significant portion of Moldova's electricity and gas needs are now being met by Romania. Legal committees are working together on EU harmonization. Harmonization of laws, regulations and standards is already underway. Romania is Moldova's largest trade partner and energy supplier. Unification hasn't officially happened, but it has effectively begun. Romania's side is cautious but supportive. President Nicușor Dan said, "We're not there yet." But Prime Minister Bolojan stated he would vote yes as a citizen. Unification support in Romania is 56%. And when Moldova's 44% and Romania's 56% are evaluated together, it's clear that unification is no longer just a nostalgic dream. Russia's response is harsh. Lavrov said unification would destroy the Moldovan state and called it provocation and NATO expansion. But Russia's capacity to prevent this is limited. The last institutional tie was severed with the CIS exit. Energy dependency has shifted in Romania's favor. The military presence in Transnistria, Russia's last leverage, is eroding through persona non grata declarations. Moscow is losing Moldova, and there's almost no tool left to stop this loss. While the unification scenario is still hypothetical, its geostrategic consequences are worth analyzing now, because if it happens, the equation in Transnistria completely changes. If Moldova unifies with Romania, the Russian soldiers in Transnistria would no longer be on Moldovan soil. They would be stationed on the territory of a NATO and EU member state. This fundamentally transforms the situation. Currently, the Russian soldiers in Transnistria are on the territory of a small, neutral country with weak military capacity. With unification, these soldiers would be on NATO territory, and the rules of the game completely change. Russia can threaten Moldova, but threatening NATO member Romania is an entirely different risk category. And this risk is not merely theoretical. Behind Romania stands the collective defense commitment of 31 NATO members. NATO's Article 5 may not directly come into play. NATO would likely classify Transnistria as an unresolved issue. But any military provocation by Russia in this region could be perceived as action against a NATO ally, and this increases deterrence significantly. Romania's NATO membership and its strategic position in the Black Sea affect the equation. Romania is already the key country of NATO's southeastern flank, with the Aegis Ashore missile defense system at Deveselu, Mihail Kogălnicianu Air Base, and Black Sea naval presence. It serves as a significant deterrent force against Russia. Unification could mean this military infrastructure extending to Moldova's borders, further narrowing Russia's strategic depth on its western flank. The Odessa Triangle, the trilateral cooperation format established between Moldova, Romania, and Ukraine in 2022, becomes even more important in this scenario. The three countries are already coordinating on security, energy, and cyber defense. The Triple Cyber Alliance, signed in February 2026, is creating joint defense against hybrid threats. If unification happens, this triangle narrows to two countries, but power projection multiplies exponentially. And the 1,500 Russian soldiers in Transnistria would be completely helpless in this scenario. On NATO territory, without ammunition, without reinforcement, without exit. Moscow's only option would be to withdraw through diplomatic negotiation. This means the complete collapse of Russia's 30-year frozen conflict strategy, and it sets a precedent for all frozen conflict instruments like South Ossetia and Abkhazia in Georgia. If Moldova resolves Transnistria, the Kremlin's freeze and control strategy in the post-Soviet space permanently collapses. It's certain that all these developments are resonating in the Kremlin, because Russian Security Council Secretary Shoigu's statement on April 21st is the voice of panic. Shoigu compared the situation in Transnistria to post-2014 Donbass. He accused Moldova of establishing a blockade, restricting freedom of movement, and arbitrarily depriving people of citizenship. He said, over 220,000 Russian citizens live in Transnistria, and their security is under threat. And he added the key sentence, Russia will take all necessary steps and use all available methods to protect them if needed. This rhetoric is a deliberate choice and a historical pattern. In 2014, Russia used the safety of Russian citizens rhetoric before annexing Crimea. The proxy war in Donbass also started with the same justification. First, threatened Russians rhetoric, then volunteers and weapons transfers, then de facto occupation. Shoigu is now applying the same template to Transnistria. Phrases like blockade, movement restrictions, deprivation of citizenship deliberately repeat the Donbass pattern. The Kremlin didn't choose this language by accident. This is a crisis escalation signal. But is there enough power behind the signal? That's the real question. When we analyze Putin's options on Transnistria, the picture is bleak from the Kremlin's perspective. Military intervention is effectively impossible. Diplomatic pressure is ineffective because Moldova is no longer in the CIS and Russia's institutional tools are exhausted. Economic pressure is limited because Moldova's energy dependency has shifted to Romania. And most importantly, unlike Iran, Russia has no military threat it can use against Moldova because there's a country it's fighting with in between. But there's a massive difference between 2014 and 2026. Russia's military intervention capacity. Reaching the region by land is impossible. Ukraine is in between, and Ukraine is in active war with Russia. In the first weeks of the 2022 war, Russia tried to establish a land connection with Transnistria by advancing toward Odessa. This plan completely failed. Russia never reached Odessa, and now the front lines are hundreds of kilometers away from Transnistria. Even if Ukraine doesn't win the war, it's enough that it prevents Russia from reaching Transnistria. And to remove this obstacle, Russia would need to make a massive advance on the southern front, which is a scenario no military analyst currently foresees. Sending reinforcements by air requires getting past Ukraine's air defenses. Ukraine's Patriot, NASAMS and Iris-T systems turn such an operation into a suicide mission. And flying Russia's large transport aircraft, Il-76s, through Ukrainian airspace means sending an invitation to shoot them down. Access by sea is ruled out from the start because Moldova has no coastline. And besides, Russia's Black Sea fleet has already taken serious damage from Ukraine's maritime drones and Neptune missiles. So Russia cannot even reinforce its own soldiers. Launching a new military operation is effectively impossible. Ukraine is a constant in this equation. Russia would need to either completely defeat Ukraine or control all of Ukraine's airspace to reach Transnistria, and neither is currently possible. The headline of Euromaidan Press's analysis summarizes the situation. Shoigu threatened, but available methods are limited because Ukraine is in the way. And this helplessness also reveals the Kremlin's strategic dead end. Putin has used Transnistria for years as a tool for pressuring Europe, leverage against NATO expansion, a tool for keeping Moldova in its orbit, a card for influencing the balance in the Black Sea. But now this card is slipping from his hand. The military presence in Transnistria has gone from being a pressure tool to becoming a burden. 1,500 soldiers that can't be fed, reinforced or commanded are no longer Russia's power projection, but a symbol of Russia's weakness. And Shoigu's resort to Donbass rhetoric is a sign that the Kremlin doesn't want to acknowledge this weakness, but also has no alternative plan. Military intervention seems impossible, but this doesn't mean Russia can do nothing. The Kremlin still has a toolbox it can use. It just doesn't have tanks and aircraft in it. Hybrid threats are the main tools in this box. Disinformation campaigns, fake news operations to undermine Moldova's EU process, attempts to frame the Sandu government as a Western puppet. Cyber attacks, targeting Moldova's infrastructure, energy grid, and government systems. And the most dangerous, provocations inside Transnistria, false flag operations, inciting ethnic tensions, or creating attack on Russian citizens scenarios. In the first days of the 2022 Ukraine invasion, Russia tried exactly these kinds of provocations in Transnistria. Claims of attacks on Tiraspol's security ministry, claims of drone fire on the Kubazna ammunition depot, sabotage scenarios targeting radio towers. These provocations were meant to prepare the ground for Russia's advance toward Odessa, but both the military advance stopped and the provocations were not found credible by international opinion. It didn't work then, but the Kremlin hasn't put that playbook on the shelf. And now every move by Moldova could push the Kremlin to reopen that book. And a new focal point has emerged: Gagauzia. This small autonomous region in southern Moldova is known for its pro-Russian leanings and could be used by the Kremlin as a tool for destabilizing Moldova from within. Gagauz leaders have established close relations with Moscow in the past, and as the Transnistria card weakens, the Kremlin could deploy Gagauzia as a new pressure tool. This could be a new version of Russia's frozen conflict strategy, when losing on one front, opening another. It should be assumed that Moldova's government is analyzing this and closely monitoring developments in Gagauzia. But Moldova is no longer alone. The Odessa Triangle, the trilateral cooperation format between Moldova, Romania, and Ukraine, is creating a shield against hybrid threats. The Triple Cyber Alliance, signed in February 2026 between the cybersecurity agencies of the three countries, is building joint defense against exactly these kinds of attacks. The Trilateral Chamber of Commerce, established in Iași in January 2026, is deepening economic integration. Romania, as a NATO member, is sharing military intelligence and strengthening Moldova's defense capacity. Ukraine is providing coordination on border security. Transnistria's eastern border is under Ukraine's control. The EU is channeling funds to strengthen Moldova's institutional resilience and supporting its 2030 membership target. If Russia has hybrid tools, Moldova now also has a hybrid shield, and that shield is growing stronger every day. Moldova's foreign ministry's response on April 22nd was calm but firm. The rights of all persons in the region are fully protected and guaranteed. The situation is stable. This means Chisinau is refusing to escalate, but also not stepping back. And this balance is Moldova's most powerful weapon. What Moldova is doing is quiet, but calculated. Without firing a single shot, it's trying to resolve one of Europe's oldest frozen conflicts. In 2014, the Kremlin had the capacity. It annexed Crimea within weeks. In 2026, the Ukraine war is draining all resources. The Black Sea Fleet has taken damage, and there's no way to reach Transnistria. Shoigu resorts to Donbass language, trying to fill the shell of an empty threat with memories of 2014. With a population of less than 4 million, with military power at a virtually non-existent level, a state that cornered Russia with the right strategy, the right timing, and the right allies. Persona non grata, customs regulations, KIS decrees, not weapons of war, but their results can be as effective as a military operation. So will the soldiers quietly withdraw, or will tensions escalate with one final provocation? If unification with Romania happens, will NATO's border reach the Dniester? Whose control will the 20,000 tons of ammunition at Kubazna remain under? This is the process that will determine the future of Russia's entire freeze and control strategy. And if Moldova removes this model, a domino effect could begin. What do you think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments.